Hello, and welcome to another review video. This time around, I'll be looking at the Kaiju No. 8 collab. This is a brand new collab with a total of 25 units, with each roll costing 7 magic stones. A lot of the units here have the new Resonance Awakening, which once activated will triple that unit's stats. To actually proc Resonance, the equip on the unit will need to be the same attribute as the base monster, while at the same time have an overlapping monster type. This huge boost in bulk means that a lot of teams here can go without running a looping shield or a looping HP buffer. However, since as of late, dungeons have had a couple of huge hits scattered throughout, these Kaiju No. 8 teams will still need to run units that grant large shields or HP buffs to get enough bulk for those turns. Since most of your bulk with these teams will be coming from the Resonance Awakening, that will mean that it's very important to recover your assist ASAP. Kaiju No. 8 brings 6 notable teams. Most of these are considered to be meta. 2 specific teams also excel at quickly farming endgame content, and one of them also has an XP boosting leader skill. I'll be taking a quick look at all of the units from the collab. Hopefully this video helps you decide whether to roll, exchange, or skip this event. If you found this video helpful, please remember to like and subscribe. First off, let me go over the non-REM units. The Descended Drop Kaiju No. 9 is a 1-turn Omni Piercer on a 2-turn cooldown. You could include 2 in a team to have permanent uptime, as 1 turn of these effects is often not enough coverage. The big problem with this unit is that you will need a normal Poison Orb Skyfall to be active to be able to use this unit, and unfortunately, active skills that give you that effect are lacking in numbers. There is 1 REM unit from this collab that does give you the Skyfall effect, but the team that might use these 2 units is lacking in self-flexibility and thus doesn't have space for this Descended boss. However, if you will be running the REM Kaiju No. 9 team, you should max out this farmable unit as it is a Sync Awakening requirement. By clearing quests, you'll be able to obtain the non-REM Kafka and Reno duo unit. Like previous non-REM versions of patch units, this one has the same active skill but worse stats and awakenings than its REM counterpart. I really doubt that you'll have much use for this unit, but maybe this can be useful in a dungeon where you need a boost in bulk via shield or an HP buff. So just like with the previous unit, the main reason to get this one is to unlock Kafka's, Narumi's, and Reno's Sync Awakenings. You can get this equipped by exchanging 20 Kaiju No. 8 Rainbow tokens. This one has the new SDR Awakening, which can definitely come in handy, especially on units that use 6 slot latents. You also get a decent amount of bulk, OEs, and 2 effective skill boosts, which is all very solid for a free equip. The Fire and Wood Skyfall buff can also help meet some units' conditional active skills like Tanjiro and Nezuko's. Since this is a fire attacker equip, it can also activate almost all of the Fire Kaiju No. 8 REM units' Resonance Awakenings. However, those units would definitely want equips that boost damage. But if your monster box is a bit shallow, then this is not the worst option. Make sure to exchange for this equip, especially because this one is also a Sync Awakening requirement for Mina. Isao Shinomiya is the MP unit of the collab, and you should therefore get him if you will be playing any Kaiju No. 8 team. Apart from enhancing the collab patch, this unit is essentially in Kikoru teams as the looping cap breaker that can also deal with Awoken Binds. Isao is often the asymmetrical pairing for that unit, as Kikoru's leader skill does not provide any follow-up attack. This unit's active skill gives the attacker type damage buff needed to fully activate Kikoru's active skill. Some Kikoru builds use Hagenezuka from Demon Slayer as a cap breaker, but will probably still include Isao, as the attacker buff will be very useful to void combo absorption shield. Kikoru teams can easily stack up Heartbreak Awakenings, though like always, mass attack teams often have the problem of not being able to kill the parts before the main body. Isao's Sparse Gravity might come in handy then, and like always, the more Awoken Bind clears in the team, the better, especially for Kikoru, as her leader skill depends on being able to activate an L Awakening to reduce damage. Isao's equip is also often found in Kikoru teams, as it activates Resonance, will bring a good amount of effective skill boost, bulk, and the new SDR Awakening. I would say that at the very least, you will want 1 copy of Isao if you'll be playing the non-Shinomiya teams. If you do assemble a Kikoru team, then I would say that you want to get at least 2 or 3 copies of Isao, 1 to use as a base in the team and the rest to use as equips. If you're skipping this collab, you probably won't have much use for this MP unit, and I think that you can safely skip it. Do remember that MP is precious nowadays, so only pull the trigger on units that will actually come in useful. These are all the upcoming and returning MP units that we should be seeing coming to NA in the near future. If you didn't hear the news, Digimon will be returning to JP very soon, and so far, we don't have that many details on those units. One thing we do know is that Imperial Dramon Paladin mode will be the MP unit of the collab. Maybe you're a fan of the IP and want to get as many copies as possible of this unit, so keep this in mind. The collab will actually be dropping in JP on the 21st of November, and Kaiju number 8 will still be ongoing in NA, so you could wait until the full details are out for Digimon and then decide if you want to pull the trigger on Isao. Okay, let me move on to the REM units. These two units are largely unimpressive. Konomi seems like an okay cleric, but doesn't bring anything exciting to the table. Recently released clerics usually have way better secondary effects on top of dealing with awoken binds and unmatchable debuffs. Konomi's one-turn roulette and 3x recovery buff will mostly be inconsequential. You could use her in leader swap teams to farm rank XP, but if you're min-maxing, you would probably rather go with either Celine or her bartender version as a leader. Konomi's equip could at the very least be used to stock up on OE, but you might have some other options with better active skills. Haruichi is severely lacking at home since water and wood teams are lacking at the moment, even with all the recent support to this archetype. Maybe you can make use of him if you want to play with the new UNY and Verdandi or DL Evos, or with the new Halloween Gyori recolor. If water and wood teams do become relevant, then maybe this unit wouldn't be a bad option as a piercer due to his uptime and secondary effects. His equip might also not have a bright future, as the only meta T team right now is Reno's, that needs water, attacker, and machine type equips to activate resonance. These two fire units could go into either Narumi or Kafka setups, however, they are rarely used. Rin does have a decent active skill to help tackle absorptions, plus she can also deal with awoken binds that are deadly to teams that need to activate certain awakenings to reduce damage. Unluckily for Rin, those other teams can cover her role with other Kaiju number 8 units that provide a lot more value, like Soshiro and the Fire Duo. Ryo is also overshadowed by a couple of other Kaiju number 8 units, but like with Ren, this unit is definitely usable for those teams if you have nothing better. Ryo's active skill pierces for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown, and can also tackle awoken binds, which really helps modern teams regain the bulk lost from team HP and resonance awakenings. Ryo does bring 3 of the former, but that does come at the expense of him being bindable. Make sure to cover up that vulnerability via equip if you do decide to run this unit. Typically, a unit's own equip complements the base, and Ryo is a good example, though he might not be able to triple cap in super gravity dungeons, as 1-7C and Across Awakening are not that significant of a boost on units without levitate. This equip can be a lot more useful on units like Reincarnated Gyu, who will make great use of the 3-turn haste active skill. This Kaiju team is generally considered to be the weakest one. It's also the hardest to assemble, as all but one of the units here are REM-only units. This is also a Devil Rainbow team that needs to match Ls to deal damage, and therefore finding replacements or even playing the team might not be the easiest things to do. Priondactyl is an attribute absorption voider on a short cooldown that tackles a few other things. The board size change is important if you want to have an easier time matching 5 attributes, with one of the matches being an L shape. However, to activate the team's damage reduction from the later skill, you only need to match 4 attributes, so a board shrink isn't the end of the world if you're used to playing rainbow teams. And that debuff will only slow you down a few turns if you have recently used this unit's active skill, though things could go south if you add thorns or special roulettes into the mix. Priondactyl's active skill also has a 20% gravity to parts, though as it's usually the case, rainbow teams don't have the easiest time performing power break, and this team specifically will not do that well since the leaders do not boost drop rate for parts, and at best, the team members can only have up to 3 power break awakenings in total. This unit's equip could be used in some farming situations due to its true 35% gravity. The active skill does drop you to 1 HP though, so you will have to worry about enemy hits or preemptive. You could take some measures to avoid that, like nullifying damage or healing right after using the equip. The cleric effect on the equip could also come very handy, and I could maybe see this being useful in a ranking dungeon. But at the moment, I don't think that there's that many places where this type of equip is preferable over the farmable Zeus Avatama. Mixocastero closes the orb generation loop when used alongside Kaiju number 9, who also gives you a rainbow board, but is on a 4-turn cooldown. Therefore, to play these teams, you will need this REM-only unit to have an activatable board every single turn. This unit is not only important due to the orb generation, but also because you'll need the Poison Skyfall to be able to transform Kaiju number 9. You could use one of the few other units or equips that grant Poison Skyfall, but the whole Kaiju team will suffer overall if you exclude this unit. Mitsukastero's 3 heal OE pluses will be essential to survive against some turn damage or in super altitude dungeons, and there really aren't any other alternatives that will perform as well in newer dungeons. The one problem with the team is that this unit might not even give you 4 heal orbs. Mitsukastero will also serve as the cleric of the team, but as you'll note, their active skill only clears 5 turns of Unmatchable and Awoken Binds. 5 turns is usually enough for some of the newer dungeons, but sometimes you will definitely encounter binds and unmatchable debuffs that last more than 5 turns, and this team will most likely die in those situations. So even the optimal Kaiju team will not cut it in some dungeons. This unit's equip can turn any damage dealer into a decent rainbow sub with its 12x multiplier when you match 5 attributes. The new SDR Awakening is interesting, though if you're not running this in a Narumi Team, you probably won't care that much about this equip. The equip's active skill could also be used to meet Kaiju No. 9's transforming condition if you for some reason rather not run the base in the team. Though again, the Kaiju team will be much better off running Mitsukastero as they can both serve as your orb generator and cleric, that is, as long as the dungeon doesn't bind you for more than 5 turns. Kaiju number 10 is the cap breaker of this devil team. His active skill is on a very short cooldown, meaning that constant reapplications of the buff will help to quickly recover from cap break debuffs. This unit has a high personal damage multiplier and 2 resist awakenings. The latter are useful in rainbow teams, and having these as base awakenings means that you won't have to worry about tape or cloud after enemies removing your assist. If you keep looping this unit, you will also have no Skyfall combos, which can mean slightly faster clears. The shield break will also speed up some floors, but at the end of the day, I would not expect fast clears with this rainbow team that also requires a special shape. Kaiju number 10's equip adds a lot of bulk, especially against dark enemies. It also turns units into devil type and gives them a card break awakening to better fit in Kaiju number 9 or Sohagu-ten teams, for example. Even if you have no interest in the Kaiju team, I would recommend keeping a copy of this unit for the equip alone, as 3 team HPs and a Dark Resist Awakening can be pretty amazing in some specific dungeons. Primigenius is pretty important for the Kaiju team as it handles spears, damage absorption, and also buffs your HP. However, this unit could serve as a Muscati replacement in Rosetta teams. Their damage multiplier doesn't come close to Muscati's, but the active skill is similar enough. Putting this in a Rosetta team can also mean you have an easier time replacing Phyllis if the dungeon calls for an HP buff. Since this unit also has L Awakenings, the replacement cleric doesn't even need to cover that either. This unit also comes with a Parts Gravity active skill, though honestly this probably won't matter that much, because Kaiju number 9 teams really struggle to break parts, and when it comes to Rosetta teams, those teams already excel at performing part break. Obviously having a Parts Gravity will make things a lot faster, so this unit is pretty decent overall, even if you won't be making much use out of their card break awakening. Primigenius equip is fairly solid, both active skill wise and awakening wise. If you have a well-developed monster box, this might not look that exciting, but if that's not you, then maybe this could come in handy. Kaiju number 9 is a rainbow leader that requires L matches to deal damage. I suspect that this leader will not be all that popular, as matching rainbow is laborious enough as it is. If you do decide to run this unit, this leader can provide you with a 1.3 EXP and egg drop boost. Though again, since this is a rainbow leader that requires an L match, you won't have the easiest or fastest time farming with this team. By having 2 of Kaiju number 9 in a team, you will have a looping 50% shield and a time buff, which all makes this a decently tanky leader with hopefully enough move time to match all attributes and an L. You also get Orb Gen, but since this is on a 4-turn cooldown, you will need a 2-turn cooldown Orb Generator like Mitsukastero, and that's basically the only option. The team lacks flexibility when it comes to subs, mainly since Kaiju number 9 needs a Poison Skyfall to be able to transform, and this requirement can't be easily met without deviating much from the intended team, which is this one. Another issue that might arise if you deviate from the intended team is that the Orb Gen gives you a random assortment of orbs. And since you can't guarantee at least 5 wood, light, or dark orbs on the board, some of your subs will need to be fire or water attribute and have L awakenings so that you can fully activate this unit's leader skill. Kaiju number 9's equip is great to turn any unit into a sub for his team, since you get decent bulk, damage boost, and the devil type needed to receive Kaiju number 10's cap break. The cooldown on this equip is a little long though, and outside of Kaiju number 9 teams, I don't see this equip being in high demand. Kaiju number 9 is exchangeable for GFEs, but I wouldn't pull the trigger until you get all of his subs from the REM first. And even then, I might still not even get this unit unless you really want to play this very demanding leader. The Reno team is basically only a T-shade team as you won't need to match a BDP to triple cap. I mentioned this because Reno and the duo have death BDP plus awakenings, since you won't be matching that shape. Only one of the Kaiju number 8 units in this team is exchangeable, so assembling a strong team might not be the easiest thing. Actually, some of the stronger builds drop the only exchangeable unit in this comp, so if you're trying to go for optimal, you will have to pull all of the units from the REM. The non-Kaiju number 8 units that I show here are also kinda hard to obtain via stones. Maybe you missed your chance of getting them, but replacements do exist. For example, you could use the new Halloween Water Suo instead of Giyu and Circlia instead of Bright Usui. As I alluded before, Reno and Iharu is not only replaceable, but a lot of times it's preferable to drop this unit in favor of another solo Reno. You do miss out on this unit's looping shield, but the team can get enough bulk to get by without it. Using Reno instead of the duo also means you'll have a way better board, especially against enemies that flow your board with either water, light, or heal orbs, as this duo does not override orbs. To activate Reno's leader skill damage reduction, you'll need to match water and light orbs, so being unable to generate orbs under certain conditions is another reason why this duo is often dropped. The duo's equip is solid for OE stacking, but otherwise seems pretty lackluster. I could definitely see being used in some bells, specifically for farming parts, but overall, I wouldn't care about making this exchange, even if you care for the Reno team. If you only have one Reno and depend on a Reno helper, you could even close the orb gen loop with Pat, Al, and Claudia, which further diminishes the value of this duo unit. To exchange for it at your own discretion. Juko is an Omnivoider on essentially a 4-turn cooldown with an effect that lasts for 2 turns. So overall, this is pretty decent coverage. If your team matches T's, then this unit fits in very nicely, and it is therefore no surprise that the Reno team likes to use this unit. Outside of Reno teams, however, Jugo probably won't see much use, as Water T teams are not plentiful. I think only one copy of this unit is needed at the most, as the equip is not that special since Water BDP teams are also lacking in numbers. Reno is a leader that boosts rank XP and is fairly easy to play with if you enjoy matching Ts. Ts are fairly recent, so maybe not a lot of people have experience making them, but with Reno's 15-second move time leader skill, you shouldn't have much trouble matching them. Ideally, you want to match one water and one light T to maximize your damage output, but depending on the dungeon and the enemy's HP, you could just focus on the water one and still sweep the floor. The leader skill is also very bulky, easy to activate, and lets you stall if you don't match any T shapes. With three in a team, you have consistent orb generation, and you get to constantly reapply cap breaks for attacker types and fix your board size. It does feel like overkill to use more than 2 Renos in a team since his active skill lasts for 2 turns, but like I mentioned, this is way more consistent than using one Reno duo just for its looping shield. This unit does have a Power Break Awakening, but it's going to be hard to stack enough Power Break Awakenings to guarantee drops in most endgame dungeons, while at the same time fulfilling resonance, skill boost, and bulk requirements. Reno's equip is really good on damage dealers like Laufey. If you put this on her, she is able to help recover assist while being able to resist up to 4 turns of skill delays. Her damage is still a bit lacking with only this equip's 10C, but with her own targeted attack buff and cross SA, she can still deal pretty decent damage on her 3rd attribute. And in general, the haze active skill on the equip definitely helps, so long as you don't mind the water sub-attribute and the lack of bulk. The Kikoru team is not considered meta, so you will not find them on tier list. However, this team can quickly farm dungeons thanks to his damage output from just matching one pre-made combo. These teams do depend on auto heal effects to survive, and even though Aoi has an active skill with that effect, he isn't the best fit and is often excluded from Kikoru teams. Aoi's active skill does not even loop without another haste unit in the team, which you probably won't bother bringing along. Maybe you would if this collab had another haste unit that fits into the team, but since that's not the case, a lot of Kikoru teams either run looping auto healers like Chibi and Isu, or equips with long-lasting auto heal effects like the Natsu duos. Maybe you could fit this unit in other teams since he does bring a lot of utility to the table, but for now, I think he'll just be a box cheerleader as not even his equip is all that interesting. Auto heal awakenings are pretty much useless nowadays, and the other awakenings on the equip and its active skill are not that special. If you're in desperate need of fodder, I might even trade away all of your Aois. So like always, use your own discretion when making these decisions. Iharu is a common sub for some comps to deal with absorptions. he can actually deal damage in this light L team and can also help ensure that this mass attack team is able to break the parts before killing the main body with his parts gravity active skill. The board change effect can also matter in case an enemy ever changes your whole board to light orbs, as Kikoru's and Isao's leader skill both require an L match to reduce damage. However, you will notice that most of the specialized builds that I showed earlier do not include this unit, so even if he doesn't increase you from the REM, you could still make a lot of farming teams without Iharu. Since his equip is as lackluster as the previous unit, I think one copy of Iharu is more than enough. The Kikoru duo is exchangeable, but I would only get them if you plan to assemble the Shinomiya team, as this duo won't be that useful outside of these teams. The duo won't be dealing much damage unless your team can generate enough light orbs for an L shape. For some dungeons, the stage 1 active skill can allow you to forego running an auto heal unit or equip. However, that would probably only work in short dungeons. A lot of times, you'll be using the duo's active skill right away to get access to their second stage active skill ASAP, since this is the only unit in this team that can address unmatchable debuffs. This duo also serves as the only piercer in the team, so some stalling might be required if the dungeon makes you use the active skill for its cleric effect. Isao could handle a Walking Pines too, but he'll probably be needed for his team-wide cap break to actually progress throughout the dungeon. All of these little issues can pile up and actually end your run, but on the flip side, once you know the optimal time to pop the team's active skills, you should be able to clear the dungeon really fast. The duo's equip is the only L+1 out there that is able to activate this unit's Resonance Awakening and change its fire sub-attribute, so I could see some people going for 2 copies. Though if you don't care about min-maxing, I think you should be fine with 1 copy to use as a base. Again, I'll stress that I would only get 1 duo after you have gotten all of the other subs in the team and are completely done rolling in Kaiju No. 8. It would really suck to get a copy after exchanging for 1 Kikoru duo, as that fodder could have gone towards the badge or a different duo to complete some of the other teams. Kikoru is a mid-priority unit and the most important part of the team, obviously because she's one of the leaders, but also because her orb generation is essential for these fast farming teams. Her active skill creates a light L on the top left corner of the board, and along with her succinct leader skill, once you swipe, you won't get any skyfall or bonus combo animations. Her conditional active skill effects are enabled by the MP unit Isao, who also serves as a cap breaker for the team. Once you activate that other unit's attacker attack buff, Kikoru will be able to void combo absorption shields so that your team can continue one-seeing to victory. The live orb enhancement effect also means that your team could forgo stacking OEs via equips, since you won't have to worry about negative orb skyfalls or debuffs. This team could go even faster if you don't enable the attack buff, since that way you won't have to sit through 2 animations. However, not using Isao will mean not dealing much damage, since he is usually essential for your team's damage output. You could run someone like Hagenesuka to still be able to deal damage without any extra animations. Kikoru's equip is amazing for also getting a significant damage output boost without extra animations. Plus, if you break one of the Ls generated by the equip, then you could go without using an active skill on the next turn, as you'll have enough orbs to match another L, provided that the enemy doesn't mess with your board. This equip is also amazing for these light L units, as it can activate the Resonance Awakening. And it's also unique at the moment, since this is the only equip with 4 L awakenings, which altogether almost gives you the equivalent attack boost that you would get from a 10C plus awakening. For a lot of builds, it's common to see at least one of this equip in the team, and some teams might even have 2 or 3 copies of this insane L equip. Unfortunately, since this is a mid-priority unit, getting multiple dupes could get very expensive, so chase the Kikoru team at your own discretion. A relatively easy team to obtain from this collab is Mina's. This team reminds me of Red's, as both are row-based and require matching 2 attributes. However, the Mina team is more adept at performing part break since the team has access to part gravity. Tae Nakanoshima is sometimes used in the Mina team and serves as a looping cap breaker. However, Mina does constantly cap break herself, so running this unit doesn't seem all that valuable unless you're trying to meet a specific damage output threshold. The board change from your active skill might matter if you won't be able to activate your leader skill damage reduction, or if you have a lot of poisons on the board. I would say that this is one of the weakest link in the team and is therefore sometimes dropped from some comps in favor of another fire duo so that the team has permanent pierce and damage absorption void uptime. Of course, what's best depends on the dungeon. Your team might benefit more from Tae's blind and jammer resist if you cannot fit those via equip. The jammer resist specifically might be of great help against stray bombs, as those will not allow you to match any fire rows. As it is the case with most units, Tae's own equip is great on herself, so you might want to keep at least 2 copies if you plan on using her or the Mina team. The damage from a 7C awakening is not that impressive, so depending on the dungeon, you might have to go with something like a levitate equip instead of her own. Do keep in mind the new Resonance Awakening, as this has restrictions when it comes to attribute and monster type to enable the 3x stat boost. Kafka and Reno is the batch unit of the collab, so if you have any interest in teams consisting of at least 4 Kaiju units, you might want to look into exchanging for this. The base often sees play in Mina teams, so just like Tae, this unit is also sometimes dropped from the team. So if you do drop this unit from the team, be mindful that you will be missing some Hilo E awakenings, which might be necessary if you're tackling super altitude dungeons. 4 Hilo E's might not seem like a lot, but thanks to Resonance, these force should get the job done, especially in Mina teams, since her leader skill gives a very significant recovery boost. This duo has a cycling active skill that basically provides you a 2x HP buff in both stages, but only for 1 turn, on a 2-turn cooldown. Either effect would interrupt looping shields or HP buffs, but as I mentioned before, thanks to Resonance, these teams have enough bulk to tank most sets without those other looping active skills. This utility duo will not be dealing much damage, but its 6L awakenings will be extremely helpful when it comes to recovering assess. Doing that in Kaiju No. 8 teams, or any that have a lot of Resonance units, is essential, since when your assists are gone, those units will lose 66% of their bulk. Though specifically in Mina teams, this duo probably won't be the one with the assist recovery latent, since the team struggles to guarantee enough fire orbs to match a row and an L. You'll be better off running that latent on your Minas or Tae, as those cards can use wood orbs to help recover assist. You'll notice later that Mina only generates 4 wood orbs, so there's still a chance that you'll have to tank ahead without any assist if you don't have at least 1 wood orb on the board before activating Mina. The duo's active skill could come in clutch in those cases, as again, you will effectively double your bulk, and if you know the dungeon well enough, you could time the second active skill with assist removal floors, as you will then have a roulette where you can fish out fire or wood orbs to match those L shapes. On top of that and other buffs, this duo also provides a 30% cross gravity on essentially a 4-turn cooldown. This is essential for mass attack teams, as they often struggle to destroy parts before killing the main body, so make sure to time the active skill correctly so that you can get the most out of this gravity. Kafka and Reno's equip is simply amazing, and is probably the first exchange I would look into making. This equip adds a ton of bulk and utility, not to mention that it comes with 5 effective skill boosts and the new SDR awakening. I think this is bound to be useful in various teams. It primarily shines on utility units that use 6-slot latents, as the SDR awakening means that the unit will be able to resist up to a 4-turn skill delay. Basically, if you have any plans of rolling in this collab, you'll find yourself in situations where you'll either want the badge, the base form, or the equip. Even if you don't care for the Kaiju No. 8 teams, you might still want to get this unit for the equip. Mina Ashiro is one of the leaders for this team, though sometimes you do see 2 of her being drawn as leaders if you rather have 1 more bonus combo and a higher recovery boost as opposed to the usual Kafka and Mina setup. This unit is exchangeable for GFEs, so if you got most of the other units in this team, exchanging for Mina might not be a bad move, especially if you want to save on magic stones. You do want to have 2 copies of her in a team, since she is your orb generation system that can also tackle attribute absorptions. Even though Mina's and Kafka's leader skill do not require wood matches, these are important to fully activate her damage awakenings. Not only do you get the damage boost from matching both attributes, but you also get to neutralize attribute disadvantages. That way, tanky water enemies shouldn't slow you down. Conversely, if you ever need to stall, you could just match a fire row to minimize your damage as much as possible while still activating your damage reduction from these units' leader skills. Mina's pre-transformation leader skill boosts parts drop traits, and she also comes with a part break awakening, so you would expect her to be able to reliably farm parts. Though at the same time, you might be skeptical whether this team is actually able to do that, since most mass attack teams, like Fred's, struggle breaking parts before killing the main body. That's not that far off from the truth if you don't take advantage from the badge duo's parts gravity active skill. Without that in the team, it's very unlikely that Mina will actually be able to perform part break. Unfortunately, it is still entirely possible to prematurely kill the body with a team such as this. Mina's equip is great, not just on herself due to resonance, but on mostly any meta team that cares about farming parts, as all of the equip's awakenings are all very solid. This is barely similar to Chahyul and Madu's equip, but it's way easier to obtain since this can be exchanged. Even if you have no interest in Mina teams, you might want to get this if again, you care about farming parts and don't have equips such as Pat, Allen, Shaquille, and Madhu. Yes, the active skill on the equip isn't the best on turn 1 of most dungeons, but you could just put this on a transforming unit such as Doma or Rosetta. So in the case of Rosetta, make sure not to max skill the equip as it can be easily overcharged. Kafka is the orb skin unit and is therefore purchasable for $20. This is Mina's preferred asymmetrical pairing, though like I mentioned, sometimes you might rather go with a double Mina team or one more bonus combo at the expense of less bulk. Even if you run that, you will probably still run Kafka as a sub, since he serves as a low cooldown, damage-centric cleric that can drastically increase your damage output with his 40 billion cap break. The pierce effect is also helpful, but as it is often the case with units like this, you'll mainly be using this unit as a cleric. Getting hit with an unmatchable or a walk-in bind debuff with a team like this is a death sentence, so you can't be that liberal with Kafka's active skill. If you get 3 Kafkas, you could create a system, and with 2 Minas in the team for Orgen, you'll just need to run something like the Mina Duo to handle damage absorptions and to give an HP buff to handle large hits. That team is pretty well, so I doubt a lot of people will actually play it like that. If we go by what happened in JP, Kafka will be mainly used as an XP farming leader with Tanjiro and Nezuko. This is basically a swipe team thanks to Tanjiro and Nezuko and Butler Kurotobi's active skills. The 2 Tanjiro and Nezukos serve as orb generation, and with their 2 generated rows and the +3 combo buff from Butler Kurotobi, you'll be able to reach 11C and fully activate Kafka's leader skill by just swiping. Butler Kurotobi can be replaced by other units that give a looping +3 combo buff, so someone like Kanao, Giyu, Elgenubi, and Hestia, pending her buffs, can also work in this swipe team. In the case of Elgenubi, you will need to manually match 1 extra combo since her active skill only adds 2. But for some dungeons, hitting 10C is enough to deal with most floors. Replacing Tanjiro and Nezuko is basically impossible if you want to keep the swipe aspect. The best possible replacement is the free Tanjiro and Nezuko, though the team's damage output will definitely suffer since the free version won't be able to reach the 50 billion cap break. As a result, the overall clear speed of the team will suffer. One other possible replacement is Maid Seina, and even though she can have a decent damage multiplier, her active skill does not come with a cap break effect, so she won't be dealing much damage. It is possible to raise her cap every other turn if you run Butler Kuro and turn Seina into Dragon or Devil type. Even though these possible replacements exist, I do feel like Kafka is only worth the trouble if you have at least one drum version of Tanjiro and Nezuko. Kafka's equip is very unique at the moment, and may be reason alone to get this bundle unit. These disappearing equips may work nicely with the upcoming Self-Reliance Awakening that Gonho teased on their last stream. That one is basically the opposite of Resonance, and will triple a unit's stats if it doesn't have any equips. Therefore, an equip such as this one might be in demand in the near future. Digimon would probably have a few units with that new awakening, and since Kaiju No. 8 in NA and Digimon in JP will overlap for about a week, you could wait and see whether chasing or buying Kafka is a worthwhile investment for the future. Even if no one in Digimon calls for Kafka's equip, if Gonho decides to release more self-reliance units, then this equip might be best in slot for some of their teams that will arrive post-Digimon. The 5-turn haste on this equip on a 20-turn cooldown is crazy enough as it is. On top of that, you also get 50 Nell Orbs. Both effects can definitely be useful in ranking dungeons or even for speedrunning purposes. If you care about XP farming with the swipe team and want to prepare for self-reliance units or see value in the equip's active skill, then the Kafka bundle is definitely worth a look. There are 2 Dark and Fire cross teams that you could make with units from this collab. One of them is like a traditional team where you have different enough subs with their dedicated roles, and the other team is more of a meme since it uses 5 copies of one unit. Both are hard to assemble since the first one wants 2 BGMs and a few REM only units in the team, and the second one, while accessible, will cost a lot of resources and probably won't age that well due to the lack of flexibility. A common sub on the BGM team is AG. Like some recent leaders, Narumi needs a Dark Skyfall buff to fully activate their active skill. Without that buff, Narumi will miss out on being able to cap break your team, and therefore it's very important that you have a unit such as this that grants a Dark Skyfall. Other possible alternatives to this unit include Nakime and the Moonflower duo from Gonho Collab, though the most popular alternative and arguably better unit is Halloween Rosalind. Both AG and Rosalind have their ups and downs, so it's up to you to decide who works better for which dungeon. AG brings more skill boost and potentially more Ls, so if your team needs more bulk, you will definitely want to go with AG's Resonance Super Awakening. His active skill will also grant you a move time and recovery buff. These will definitely be helpful to counter those debuffs and to also give you enough time to match your crosses and heal through super altitude dungeons and thorn damage. These secondary effects are okay, but to me, they don't feel valuable enough to warrant a team slot. I think Rosalind is better in general since more outs to Awoken Binds are great for these modern teams that need to match certain awakenings. Rosalind also gives you more leeway as her Skyfall effect lasts for 9 turns on a 5-turn cooldown. Though the issue with Rosalind is that she doesn't bring that much bulk to the table right away, and if you need her to be the assist recovery unit, you will have to choose the L Super Awakening and give up on more bulk from a second barrel or more damage and utility from the Cross or the Part Break Awakenings. Regardless, even if you have Rosalind or some of the other Dark Skyfall units, I would still keep at least one AG if you have a Narumi team, as there might come a dungeon where you would rather have him. With the Dark Skyfall buff, Hoshina's active skill will also be fully activatable and will provide you with another out to Awoken Binds. Hoshina also comes with a Parts Gravity effect, which like always, will ensure that the team kills the parts before the main body. However, since these two effects are only available with the Dark Skyfall, there probably won't be that many teams outside of Narumi's that will be able to take full advantage of Hoshina's power. Even without those effects, Hoshina is still a good Dark sub and does see some play in Rosetta teams. Running this unit and Primigenius in a team will give you permanent Pierce uptime if properly timed, which will come pretty handy in dungeons with constant damage void shields like the Pack Dungeon. Hoshina's equip is also great on dark teams that care about parts farming, so I would definitely avoid using him as fodder as you can make use of multiple copies of this unit. Mina and Hoshina is an exchangeable duo that I mentioned previously while talking about the Mina team. Though obviously due to the unit's awakenings and attributes, this duo shines a lot more in Narumi teams. Their cycling active skill can handle various mechanics relatively quickly. The first stage is mainly great to tank large hits. The second stage provides a pierce and a void damage absorption effect, so along with standalone Hoshina, the whole Narumi team will have decent coverage against these very common mechanics. This duo essentially voids damage absorption shields for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. Worst case scenario, you'll just have to wait 2 turns to get that effect again. This is sort of like the Giyu duo in a Doma team. This team could even drop Hoshina and run 2 of the duo if you don't expect to face attribute absorption shields or know that you can stall them out. With 2 of the duo, you will have permanent pierce and damage absorption void uptime. Plus you'll have access to a Ward expansion, a targeted attack buff for everyone, and a 3x HP buff every other turn. Even though Mina is not a cross leader, the duo can still deal decent enough damage in that row team and can also help remove sticky blind skyfalls. It will be difficult to get enough orbs on the board to match a fire row and cross, but it's definitely possible if you time these units for changing active skill or if you use the batch units roulette effect. This duo's equip is a solid option on a lot of the Fire Kaiju No. 8 units to activate the Resonance Awakening. Not only that, but you also get a 3-turn haste, which will definitely help with Mina and Narumi, who have pretty high transformation cooldowns. If you plan on assembling a Narumi or Mina team, you will definitely want to get one of this duo. I think maybe 2 copies is the ideal number, as you could run either 2 as subs, or just use one of the base, and use one of the equips on themselves or another Fire Kaiju unit. 3 copies is pushing it, but I could definitely see some people going for that. Though before making any exchanges, first make sure that you can get all of the other units in the team. This other duo is also commonly used in Narumi teams, and some people might even decide to get at least 4 copies of this duo, or 5 if you hate relying on helpers. With 5 in a team, you will be able to loop the first and second stage active skill. That way, you'll have an activatable board, a shield break, a 1-turn delay, a cleric effect, a 75% damage reduction shield, and a 50 billion cap break. This is basically Lelouch, but way more consistent and with the modern damage output. The 50 billion number is a little bit misleading, as more often than not, all of the duos usually run the quad damage cap break latent. So once you add the damage, the team's output is a little over 250 billion, which is very similar to other meta teams. However, if a dungeon requires more than 3 SDRs, your damage output will severely suffer since you will need to drop the 6-slot latents as the team can't really deal with any interruptions. Equips with the new SDR Awakening, like Hoshina's, can help you retain those 6-slot latents. However, there is another glaring issue with the team. This duo has no skillbind resist awakenings. In a team with 5 of this unit, you will have to get 5 SBRs in total via your equips and with the last sub so that you can avoid any interruptions. This is definitely doable, but you will need to have very specific equips to achieve full SBR while at the same time meeting Resonance Awakening requirements. Another way to solve this issue is to use the SBR badge, but depending on the dungeon, even with the looping 75% damage reduction shield in the team, you might not have enough bulk to tank really big hits. In short, I don't really think it's worthwhile to spend a ton of resources getting this team unless you have very concrete plans. On the other hand, I do think a single copy of the duo is a solid investment as their active skill works pretty well in newer dungeons. The big shield and cleric effect work wonderfully against Granerve and Alicia in the Venus dungeon. That dungeon has 2 other large hits later on, so this unit shield will also work nicely. Even the delay from the first active skill can be of use in some dungeons, like against Gigas in the upcoming Silverwing title dungeon. The duo's equip is the first one with a Cross plus Awakening. Though outside of Narumi teams, I don't think this is all that great. Doma does come to mind, but he doesn't need that much of a damage boost to triple cap. Doma teams might prefer to stack more team HPs or Power Break Awakenings. That being said, the equip is still okay and can definitely work nicely in a Doma team. I would look into exchanging for one of this duo, especially if you run any dark teams like Rosetta's. If you don't have the optimal Rosetta subs, you can make a decently strong team with this duo, Hoshina and Primigenius. Honestly, this unit is probably still very useful outside of dark teams, so I would look into exchanging for them if you don't manage to roll them. Narumi is the BGM of the collab, so you could purchase him for $30. He is usually run as a leader for this Dark and Fire cross team, though if the dungeon has no or is light in gravity attacks, you could just run 2 as leaders. Since that isn't really the case anymore, more often than not, this unit is paired with the Narumi duo, who should be in the team anyways, so you might as well asymmetrically pair them so that you don't have to memorize when to put up a shield to deal with gravity attacks. Post-transformation, Narumi serves as an orb generator and cap breaker for dark units, provided that you have a Dark Skyfall buff. The damage output is slightly higher than Doma's, but this team does require a little bit more work since you'll have to manually heal and also match fire orbs. Narumi's leader skill does scale attack with each Dark and Fire cross, but again, only 1 cross is more than enough for most dungeons. If you don't buy bundles, getting this unit will be a lot harder than getting Doma, since again, this is a BGM unit with a low pull rate. If you decide to chase Narumi in the REM, you will hopefully get all of his subs, or at least the REM only units, plus enough fodder to exchange for the duos. Obviously, if you buy bundles, you could just outright buy Narumi, but I would still recommend doing all of your rolls first, since you will still need units from the RAM and enough fodder for the duos. So roll first, maybe you'll get lucky and can save yourself the $30. Narumi's equip is unique at the moment, as this is the only one with 2 Power Break Awakenings. Not only that, it also sports a 10C Awakening and a very useful active skill. If you care for parts farming, you might want to get your hands on this, but to be honest, this equip might be overkill. Some of the newer leaders tend to boost parts drop rate, and this usually means that the team only needs to stack 4 or 5 Power Break Awakenings throughout the subs and equips, which is a number that's relatively easy to meet nowadays. On the flip side, having this 2 Power Break equip on a unit with high stats and resonance such as Narumi himself will give you a very significant stat boost after breaking apart. And with this equip in a team, you will also have a little bit more freedom when it comes to your other equips, as you might not have to stress that much about finding something that works that also comes with a Power Break Awakening. This is a very interesting equip, and thus the bundle might be worth a look for this reason alone. Overall, while I do think Kaiju No. 8 has a lot of solid units and equips, I think most people should be able to easily decide when to stop rolling, if at all. Did you roll Hoshina and maybe AG? Then maybe you could roll until you get enough fodder to exchange for the Narumi and Mina duos, and then purchase Narumi himself to complete the team. If you're free to play, then I wouldn't look into making exchanges unless you roll 1 Narumi, as you definitely need to get 1 on your side to complete the system. The 5 Narumi duo team is not the wisest investment in my opinion, but if you are sure that you want to use the team, then thankfully, this team is fully exchangeable. The Mina team is mostly exchangeable, apart from Kafka, who you could purchase if you have the means. The only REM-only unit here is Tae, who isn't exactly needed, especially in the near future when Chow Chow gets his new ordeal Evo. Or instead of those units, the team could run another Mina duo, though exchanging for multiple duos will require a lot of fodder. At the very least, with the 5 Narumi duo and Mina teams, you can calculate how many stones you'll need to get the teams. Again, for the Mina team, the only exception is Kafka, since he is a bundle unit. You could purchase the orb skin, but since this will be a popular EXP farming leader, you probably won't have an issue finding a helper. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that only care for Kafka for XP farming purposes and will go straight for the bundle or try their luck in the REM and completely forget about Mina. If that's your goal, I would only go for Kafka if you have at least one Tanjiro and Nezuko for swiping, though ideally, you want 2 copies of that Demon Slayer unit. So if you like them, maybe Kafka won't feel all that worth it unless you're a big fan of the equip and want to gamble on this being great for upcoming self-reliance units. Since all of the Kaiju No. 8 teams use a lot of units from this collab, getting the badge and MP units will be needed to fully optimize them. So at the very least, you should budget for the badge unit even if you're after the teams that don't use the unit itself. The MP unit is essential for most Kikoru teams, and you might even want to get multiple copies of him so that you can use his equip. Before spending your precious MP on multiple copies, first you should ensure that you roll at least one Kikoru and maybe Iharu, as these are REM only units. Once you secure at least 1 or 2 Kikorus, then you can purchase the MP unit and exchange for the duo if you don't already own one so that you can use it in this team. The Reno team is fairly strong, but also hard to obtain since Reno himself and Yugo are REM only units. The Reno duo can replace a copy of Reno, but I wouldn't prioritize this exchange unless you really want to play this T team and only have one Reno. I feel like the Kaiju No. 9 team isn't worth the chase at all. Maybe you already have made ideal, and the Kaiju team doesn't come close to that team's power, while at the same time requires a lot more work. Also, Gonho teased a new Rainbow Awakening, so if you love Rainbow teams, you might have more interesting units to play with in the near future. Even if you don't care for any teams from this collab, some of these units might still be great as one-offs. Kafka, the Narumi duo, the Badge duo, and maybe the Mina duo all seem pretty decent. Kafka is for XP farming and for his potential failed unique equip. The Narumi duo has an interesting active skill that works very nicely in the current meta with large scatter hits. And to a lesser extent, the same goes for the Badge and Mina duos, who have similar active skills. In addition to the interesting active skill, the Badge unit has a very unique equip that is amazing on utility units due to the amount of utility, effective skill boost, and bulk that it provides. Unless you have a lot of resources, you probably will not be able to complete all of these teams and will have to give up on some of them. Since a lot of teams need the collab badge or one or multiple duos, you might have to make difficult choices and completely let go of some units. Like always, use your own discretion and only exchange units away that you are sure you will not miss. Things are even more difficult with this collab due to the new Resonance Awakening, since a lot of units here have equips that activate that awakening. Units like Rin and Ryo are rarely using the typical Mina and Narumi teams, but if you lack other attacker and machine fire equips, then you might want to keep one or a few copies of those units. Otherwise, if you have a deep box, I feel like you can completely get rid of them. I think that any other unit not shown here can be used as fodder, and honestly, if you're giving up or don't care for some of the teams, you can even use some units here as fodder. For example, I really don't care about the Kaiju No. 9 team, so I will probably get rid of most or all copies of him, Priondactyl, and Mixocastero. I also don't care much for the Reno team, so if I do get multiple copies of him, I will probably use the dupes as fodder, and not care about keeping a full system. If you don't care for any Kaiju No. 8 teams, then there's nothing wrong with skipping this collab if you're already happy with your teams. Maybe you are very excited about a possible Digimon run in NA since it has been announced to return to JP on the 21st of November. Maybe you want to start saving magic stones now. Still, I would say that the Kaiju No. 8 collab deserves a few rolls as you could get some very interesting units or equips if you're lucky. Make sure to check all of these units out and let me know your plans. Hopefully this video helped you out, and if it did, please remember to like and subscribe. Surely a bunch of you are saving up for Digimon. I'm also in the same camp, but I still want to try my luck with this collab. We do have a few other events coming up, but I think that Digimon has sucked up most of the oxygen. NA's 13th anniversary just started, which means we'll get a Players' Choice Godfest very soon. I don't know about rolling there if you have a deep monster box, but there should be a lot of decent units in the lineup. There should be a seasonal Super Godfest, most likely in mid-December, which will include Para Karame Camilla, who is an amazing unit for farming MP. If you're low on that resource, then maybe that's a REM where you will want to try your luck. The only other collab that should come to an A before hopefully we get Digimon is Sanrio, which honestly wasn't that exciting, but this machine can spit out some decent units. The year is almost over, so that means that the Christmas and New Year seasonal events are around the corner. However, we don't have any details yet, but thankfully these events tend to be not that exciting, so maybe these two won't be worth rolling in. Alright, that does it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and a special thanks go out to Ages Number 1 and Awkward Panda, Breastfeeding Obama, Daniel T, Dark Silencers, Doom Raccoon, Eddie Ryan, Martini, Shady, and Wave for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.